I slapped him. Right there in the middle of the airport terminal with hundreds of strangers watching, I slapped my husband so hard my palm burned for an hour afterward. Marcus didn't move. He just stood there frozen, while the woman beside him, the one wearing the perfume I'd smelled on his shirts for months, stumbled backward in her designer heels. But it wasn't my hand that broke him. It was my twin sons, 8 years old, standing right behind me. And what they said next that destroyed him more than any divorce papers ever could. Before I tell you the rest, I need you to do something for me. Subscribe to this channel and stay with me until the very end. This story took everything from me before it gave me everything back. Drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far my story travels. Now let me take you back to the beginning of the worst and best day of my life. Caroline Hayes had been married to Marcus Wellington for 12 years. 12 years of birthday parties and mortgage payments. 12 years of pretending his late nights at the office didn't smell like another woman's perfume. 12 years of swallowing words that tasted like broken glass. She thought she knew what betrayal looked like. She was wrong. The morning started like any other Monday. Caroline woke up at 6, made breakfast for her twin sons, and checked her phone for the 100th time. No messages from Marcus. He'd left for a business trip 3 days ago. San Francisco, he'd said. Important client. Couldn't be helped. "Mom, when's Dad coming home?" Ethan asked the question while shoving cereal into his mouth. His brother Oliver sat beside him, quieter, watching Caroline's face the way he always did, like he could read the words she wasn't saying. "Soon, baby." Caroline forced a smile. "Now finish up. Grandma's waiting for us at the airport." The plan was simple. Fly to Arizona. Spend a week with her mother. Give the boys some sunshine and herself some space to think. What she didn't plan was running into her husband in Terminal B. With her. The airport was crowded that morning. Families dragging luggage. Business travelers checking phones. The usual Monday chaos. Caroline held Oliver's hand while Ethan walked ahead, his backpack bouncing with each step. "Mom, can we get McDonald's?" Ethan turned around, walking backward. "Please. After we check in." "You always say that. And I always mean it." Oliver tugged her hand. "Mom." "What is it, sweetheart?" Oliver didn't answer. He just pointed. Caroline followed his finger toward the international check-in counters. At first she saw nothing unusual, just people, luggage, the normal rhythm of departure. Then her heart stopped. Marcus stood near the Air France counter, his favorite gray coat, his leather briefcase, the posture she'd memorized over a decade of marriage, shoulders back, chin up, the stance of a man who believed he owned every room he entered. He wasn't alone. A woman stood beside him. Dark hair, red coat, close enough that their arms touched when she laughed at something he said. Caroline's legs stopped working. "Mom?" Ethan had circled back. "What's wrong? Why are you—" He saw it too. His father, the woman, the way Marcus leaned toward her like she was the only person in the airport. "Is that Dad?" Ethan's voice cracked. "Who's that lady?" Oliver's grip tightened on Caroline's hand. He didn't ask questions. He just watched, his 8-year-old eyes taking in everything, processing, understanding more than any child should. "Stay here." Caroline heard herself speak, but the voice sounded far away. "Both of you, stay right here." "Mom." "I said stay." She walked toward Marcus. Each step felt like moving through water. The airport noise faded. Announcements, conversations, rolling luggage, all of it disappeared until there was only the sound of her own heartbeat. 20 feet away. Marcus laughed at something the woman said. The same laugh he used to save for Caroline. The one that crinkled the corners of his eyes. 10 feet. The woman touched his arm. Casual. Familiar. The touch of someone who had done it 1,000 times before. 5 feet. Marcus turned. Their eyes met. And Caroline watched the color drain from her husband's face like water running out of a sink. Caroline. Marcus said her name like it was a disease. His whole body went rigid, his hand instinctively moving away from the woman beside him. "What are you?" He stopped. Started again. "I thought you were flying out tomorrow." Clearly. The woman, young, pretty, expensive, looked between them with narrowing eyes. "Marcus, who is this?" Caroline laughed. The sound came out sharp and broken. "Who am I? I'm his wife. For another few hours anyway." The woman's face flickered. Surprise. Fear. Something calculated passed behind her eyes before she composed herself. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," she said smoothly. "Marcus and I are colleagues. We're traveling for a conference in... Save it." Caroline's voice was steady now. Cold. "I've been smelling your perfume on his shirts for 6 months. I know exactly what you are." Marcus stepped forward, his hands raised in that calming gesture Caroline had learned to hate. "Let's not do this here. We can talk about what, Marcus? The fact that you're taking your mistress to Paris while telling me you're in San Francisco? Or the fact that our sons are standing 20 feet away watching their father lie to their mother's face?" Marcus's head snapped toward the check-in counters where Ethan and Oliver stood frozen. The boys hadn't moved. They stood exactly where Caroline left them, holding hands the way they did when they were scared. Ethan's face was red, tears already forming. Oliver's face was blank, watchful, the expression of a child who had just lost something he'd never get back. "Christ," Marcus breathed. "Caroline, why would you bring them?" "I didn't bring them to catch you cheating." Her voice rose despite herself. "I brought them to see their grandmother. You know the trip I told you about, the one you said you'd try to make." The woman, Marcus's mistress, shifted uncomfortably. "Maybe I should give you two some space." "Victoria, wait, Victoria." So that was her name. Caroline filed it away. "No, she should stay." Caroline stepped closer to her husband. "She should hear this too. She should know exactly what she's getting." Marcus's jaw tightened. "You're making a scene." "I'm making a scene. I'm standing in an airport looking at my husband with another woman, and I'm the one making a scene?" People were stopping now, pretending not to watch while definitely watching. A security guard near the entrance spoke into his radio. Marcus noticed. His expression shifted embarrassment, mixing with something uglier. Something Caroline had seen before late at night when she said the wrong thing or asked the wrong question. Control. He was losing control, and Marcus Wellington never lost control. "Lower your voice." His words came out clipped. Dangerous. "Think about the boys." "I am thinking about the boys. I'm thinking about how I'm going to explain to them why their father is a liar and a cheat. I'm thinking about... Mom." The small voice cut through everything. Oliver had walked over, alone. His brother hanging back crying silently near a pillar. Caroline's heart shattered. "Oliver, baby, go back to your brother. I'll be right there." Oliver ignored her. He walked past her, past Victoria, and stopped directly in front of his father. Marcus looked down at his son. For a moment, just a moment, something human flickered across his face. Guilt, maybe, or shame. "Hey, buddy." Marcus crouched down, trying to smile. "Listen, grown-up stuff is complicated. Sometimes... Are you leaving us?" The question was quiet, simple. The voice of a child asking if the sky was blue. Marcus flinched. "What? No. No, of course not. I'm just..." "Then why are you at the airport with her?" Oliver pointed at Victoria without looking at her. "Why did you lie to Mom about San Francisco? Why do you come home smelling like different perfume?" Each question landed like a bullet. Marcus's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Oliver, you don't understand." "I understand." Oliver's voice didn't waver. You don't love Mom anymore. You love her instead. But you're scared to tell us, because you know it's wrong." The silence that followed was absolute. Victoria had gone pale. She stepped backward, her designer heels clicking against the terminal floor. Marcus stared at his son like he was seeing him for the first time. "That's not—" His voice broke. "Oliver, I do love your mother. Then why are you leaving?" No answer. Oliver waited. Patient. Relentless. The same stubbornness Caroline saw in the mirror every morning. "That's what I thought." Oliver turned and walked back toward his brother, taking Ethan's hand and pulling him close. "Come on, let's go find Grandma." Caroline watched her sons walk away together. Then she turned back to Marcus. He looked smaller somehow. The broad shoulders hunched. The confident posture crumbled. He wasn't Marcus Wellington's successful VP master of every room. He was just a man caught in a lie by an 8-year-old boy. "Caroline," she held up her hand. "Don't. Whatever you're about to say, the excuses, the explanations, the promises, save them. I've heard them all before. I just didn't want to believe them. Please, can we just talk? Away from—" He gestured vaguely at the gathering crowd. "No." Caroline's voice was ice. "We're done talking. You want to go to Paris with Victoria, go. Have a wonderful trip. But when you come back, don't come home. The locks will be changed, and your things will be on the lawn." Marcus's face darkened. "You can't do that. That's my house." "It's our house, and I'm pretty sure a judge will be interested in how you've been spending our money on international trips with your mistress." Victoria made a small sound surprise or fear Caroline couldn't tell. "This isn't over," Marcus said quietly. The dangerous tone was back. "You're upset. I get it, but you don't want to make an enemy of me, Caroline." "Funny." Caroline smiled, and it felt like armor. "I was about to say the same thing to you." She turned and walked away. Toward her sons, toward the gate, toward whatever came next. Behind her, she heard Victoria's voice, high and anxious. "Marcus, what the hell is going on?" She didn't hear his answer. She didn't care. The flight to Arizona was 3 hours of Ethan crying and Oliver staring out the window at nothing. Caroline held them both as best she could in the cramped economy seats. She whispered promises she wasn't sure she could keep. She answered questions she didn't have answers to. "Is Daddy going to live with us anymore?" "I don't know, baby." "Does he love that lady more than us?" "He loves you, both of you. That will never change." "But what about you, Mom?" Oliver asked quietly. "Does he still love you?" Caroline didn't answer. She just pulled her son closer and watched the clouds roll by beneath them. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from Marcus. "We need to talk. Don't do anything stupid. Remember, I know people. Lawyers, judges. Don't make this ugly." Caroline read it twice. Then she typed back, "It's already ugly. You made sure of that." She turned off her phone and closed her eyes. For the first time in 12 years, she didn't care what Marcus Wellington thought. She didn't care about his lawyers or his judges or his threats. All she cared about was the two boys pressed against her sides, trusting her to fix something that might be unfixable. And that was enough. For now, that was enough. Done. Her mother was waiting at the Phoenix airport with open arms and wet eyes. "Oh, honey." Margaret Hayes pulled Caroline into a hug that smelled like lavender and home. "I saw your text. That son of a bitch. That absolute son of a bitch." "Mom, the boys are getting ice cream with your father." Margaret held Caroline at arm's length, studying her face. "I sent them ahead. Figured you might need a minute." Caroline's composure cracked. The tears she'd held back on the plane came flooding out. "I didn't know," she gasped between sobs. "I suspected, but I didn't know. And the boys saw Mom. They saw everything." Oliver looked at him like he was a stranger. "And Ethan won't stop crying. And I don't know what to do. I don't know how to fix this." Margaret pulled her close again. You don't fix it, sweetheart. You survive it. And then you rebuild. How? One day at a time. One decision at a time. Starting with this one, are you going back to him? Caroline pulled back, wiping her eyes. No. The word came out stronger than she expected. No, she said again. I'm not going back. Whatever happens next, custody money, the house, I'm done pretending. I'm done being the wife who doesn't notice. I'm done. Margaret smiled, a fierce, proud smile that Caroline remembered from childhood, from every scraped knee and broken heart. That's my girl, her mother said. Now let's go get your boys. We've got a lot of planning to do. That night, after Ethan and Oliver finally fell asleep in the guest room, Caroline sat on her parents' porch with a glass of wine she couldn't taste. Her phone lay on the table beside her, silent now. Marcus had stopped texting after his fifth message went unanswered. The last one read, "Fine. Have it your way. But remember, I warned you." Caroline stared at the Arizona stars and thought about warnings. Marcus had warned her when they were dating that he was complicated. She'd found it charming then, mysterious, the brooding intensity of a man who was going places. He'd warned her when they got engaged that he worked too much. She'd told herself it meant he was ambitious, driven, a good provider. He'd warned her when Ethan and Oliver were born that he wasn't good with babies. She'd made excuses. He was stressed. He was tired. He'd come around, warning after warning, and she'd ignored them all. Not anymore. Her phone buzzed. A new email. Caroline almost didn't check it, but something made her thumb swipe across the screen. The message was from First National Bank, their joint account. Withdrawal notification, $47,000. Caroline's blood went cold. She opened their banking app with shaking fingers. Checked the account history. The money was gone. Not just that withdrawal, everything, savings, emergency fund, the college fund she'd started when the boys were babies. All of it transferred out over the past 3 weeks to accounts she didn't recognize. Marcus's final text suddenly made sense. I warned you. He'd been planning this. While she suspected an affair, he'd been planning an exit, draining their accounts, preparing for the moment he got caught. And she had nothing. Caroline sat on her parents' porch, staring at a bank balance of $847.32, and felt something shift inside her. The grief was still there. The betrayal. The heartbreak. But underneath it, rising like heat from summer pavement, was something else. Anger. Not the explosive anger that had made her slap him at the airport. Something colder, quieter, more dangerous. Marcus thought he'd won. He thought the money gave him power. He thought she'd come crawling back, begging for stability for the boys' sake. He was wrong. Caroline didn't know how yet. She didn't have a plan or a lawyer or a single advantage. But she had something Marcus had never counted on. She had nothing left to lose. And a woman with nothing to lose is a woman who can do anything. Caroline finished her wine, picked up her phone, and started searching. Family lawyers, Phoenix financial abuse divorce. How to fight a narcissist in court. The stars wheeled overhead as she read and planned and plotted. Somewhere in Paris, Marcus was probably celebrating his victory. He had no idea what was coming. Caroline spent the next 72 hours barely sleeping. Her mother brought coffee and food she couldn't taste. Her father took the boys to the park, to the movies, to anywhere that wasn't the house where their mother sat hunched over a laptop, searching for a way out of the trap Marcus had built around her. You need to rest, Margaret said on the third night. You're no good to anyone if you collapse. I can't rest. Caroline's eyes burned from screen light. He took everything, Mom, everything we had, and I have no proof he did anything wrong because technically it was a joint account. There has to be something. There isn't. I talked to 3 lawyers today, free consultations. They all said the same thing without evidence of hidden assets or proof that he moved money specifically to harm me. I'm starting from zero. Margaret sat down beside her daughter. Then we start from zero. Your father and I have some savings. We can help with a lawyer, at least get you started. I can't take your retirement money. You're not taking it. We're investing it. In you. In those boys. Caroline's throat tightened. What if I lose? What if he really does know judges and lawyers? What if he takes Ethan and Oliver? Margaret took her hand. Then you fight harder. That's what mothers do. The phone on the table buzzed. Another text from Marcus. Caroline had been ignoring them for days, but something made her look this time. Coming back tomorrow. We should meet. Discuss things like adults. She stared at the words. Like adults. As if she were the child throwing tantrums. As if he hadn't stolen $47,000 and run off to Paris with his mistress. Where she typed back. The response came immediately. The house. 6 p.m. Come alone. Caroline showed the message to her mother. Don't go, Margaret said instantly. It's a trap. He wants to intimidate you. Maybe. Caroline picked up the phone. Or maybe he's scared. He didn't expect me to fight back. He expected me to cry and beg and eventually accept whatever scraps he offered. And instead, Caroline smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. Instead, I'm going to look him in the eye and show him exactly what he's dealing with. At least take your father. No, he said alone. And honestly, I want to see who Marcus really is when there's no audience. When it's just the two of us and he can't pretend anymore. Margaret looked like she wanted to argue, but she knew her daughter. Once Caroline made up her mind, nothing moved her. Call me every hour, Margaret said finally. And if anything feels wrong, you leave. Promise me. I promise. But even as she said it, Caroline knew this meeting would change everything. She just didn't know how. The flight back to Virginia felt longer than it should have. Caroline left the boys with her parents despite their protests. Ethan cried and clung to her legs. Oliver just watched with those knowing eyes. You're going to fight Dad, Oliver said. Not a question. I'm going to talk to him. That's not what your face says. Caroline knelt down and took her son's hands. Oliver, I need you to do something for me. Take care of your brother while I'm gone. Can you do that? I always do. The words hit her harder than Oliver intended. How long had her 8-year-old been carrying burdens he shouldn't have to carry? How much had he seen that she'd missed? I know you do, baby. She kissed his forehead. And I'm sorry for that. But things are going to change. I promise. Good change or bad change? I don't know yet, but I'll make sure you and Ethan are okay. That's the only thing that matters. Oliver nodded slowly. Then he did something he rarely did anymore. He hugged her. Tight. Like he was memorizing the feeling. Be careful, Mom, he whispered. Dad's different when you're not looking. Caroline pulled back, startled. What do you mean? Oliver's face closed off. Nothing. Just be careful. He walked away before she could ask more questions, but his words stayed with her the entire flight home. Dad's different when you're not looking. What had Marcus done when she wasn't looking? The house felt foreign when Caroline walked in. Same furniture, same photos on the walls, same smell of the air freshener she'd bought on sale 3 weeks ago. But everything was wrong, like looking at a picture that had been tilted slightly off-center. Marcus sat at the kitchen table. He'd beaten her here, probably flew back early to establish dominance. Classic Marcus. Caroline. He stood when she entered, trying to smile, failing. Thank you for coming. Did I have a choice? You always have choices. That's what I wanted to talk about. He gestured to the chair across from him. Caroline didn't sit. I'll stand. Marcus's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. He didn't like when people didn't follow his scripts. Fine, I'll get straight to it then. He pulled a folder from the table. I had my lawyer draw up a proposal, generous considering the circumstances. The circumstances where you stole $47,000 and took your mistress to Paris. I didn't steal anything. It was a joint account. We both know what you did. Marcus leaned back. The mask slipped for just a second. Irritation, contempt, then smoothed back into reason. Caroline, I understand you're hurt. But let's be practical. This marriage has been over for years. We were just going through the motions. Victoria didn't cause that. She was a symptom, not the disease. Don't you dare blame me for your affair. I'm not blaming anyone. I'm stating facts. He pushed the folder toward her. Look at the offer. I'm being more than fair. Caroline didn't touch it. What's in there? You keep the house. I'll cover the mortgage for 2 years while you get back on your feet. Shared custody of the boys alternating weeks. I'll pay child support, reasonable amount, nothing excessive. And we go our separate ways with minimal drama. Minimal drama? Caroline laughed bitterly. You humiliated me at an airport. Our sons watched you lie to my face. And you want minimal drama. What I want is to move on. What do you want Caroline to drag this through court, to spend years fighting over things that won't matter in the end? I want my money back. Marcus's expression flickered. What money? The $47,000 you drained from our account, the college fund, the savings, all of it. That money's gone. Business expenses, investments, things you wouldn't understand. Try me. No. His voice hardened. That money is not part of this negotiation. What's in that folder is what you're getting. Take it or leave it. Caroline stared at him. 12 years she'd been married to this man. 12 years of believing he was complicated but good underneath. Difficult but worth it. She'd been a fool. I'm not signing anything tonight, she said finally. Caroline, I need time. I need to talk to a lawyer. Marcus stood slowly. He was taller than her, broader. He used his size now, moving closer. You don't need a lawyer. You need to be smart about this. His voice dropped, soft and dangerous. I know people, Caroline, powerful people. If you drag this out, if you try to make me look bad, I will bury you. You'll lose the house, the boys, everything. Are you threatening me? I'm advising you. There's a difference. Caroline's heart pounded, but she didn't step back. She wouldn't give him that. Here's what I know, Marcus. You're scared. If you weren't scared, you wouldn't have drained our accounts before telling me about Victoria. You wouldn't be offering me the house. You wouldn't be threatening me with powerful friends. His face went red. You don't know what you're talking about. I think I do. I think you've been planning this for months, maybe years. I think you've hidden assets, moved money, built yourself an exit strategy. And I think you're terrified that someone might actually look closely at where that money went. Silence. Marcus's hands curled into fists at his sides. For one terrifying moment, Caroline thought he might hit her. Then he stepped back, composed himself, put the mask back on. You're making a mistake, he said quietly. A very big mistake. Maybe. Caroline picked up her purse. But it's mine to make. She walked to the door. Her hand was on the knob when his voice stopped her. The boys will suffer for this. You know that, right? Every fight, every court date, every nasty headline, they'll pay the price for your pride. Caroline turned back. No, Marcus. They'll pay the price for your choices. Don't you dare put that on me. She left before he could respond. In the car, her hands shook so badly she couldn't start the engine for 5 full minutes. But she'd done it. She'd faced him. She'd refused to fold. Now she just needed to figure out what came next. The answer came 3 days later in the form of a woman named Ruth Abernathy. Caroline had called every family lawyer in the greater Virginia area. Most wanted retainers she couldn't afford. A few listened to her story and gently explained that without evidence of hidden assets, she had a weak case. Ruth was different. "Sit down, honey," the older woman said when Caroline walked into her cluttered office. "Tell me everything. And I mean everything, the parts that make you look bad too." So Caroline talked. For 2 hours she talked. The affair she'd suspected for months. The warning signs she'd ignored. The airport. The money. Marcus's threats at the house. Ruth listened without interrupting. When Caroline finished, the lawyer leaned back and smiled. "Oh, I'm going to enjoy this," Ruth said. "What do you mean?" "I mean your husband made a mistake. A big one. Several, actually, but there's one that's going to cost him dearly." Caroline leaned forward. "What mistake?" "Those transfers he made from your joint account." "When did they start?" 3 weeks ago, maybe 4. "And when did you confront him at the airport?" 5 days ago. Ruth's smile widened. "So he started moving money before you had any idea about the affair, before any talk of divorce, which means he can't claim he was protecting marital assets during a dissolution. He was hiding money while you were still together, while you had every right to that money." "Is that illegal?" "In Virginia, it's called dissipation of marital assets, and judges hate it." Ruth pulled out a legal pad. "Now you mentioned he took his mistress to Paris. Did he use joint funds for that trip?" "I don't know. I haven't been able to access the credit card statements." "We'll subpoena them, and his business accounts, and any other accounts he thinks he's hidden." Ruth wrote furiously. "Men like your husband always think they're the smartest person in the room. They make mistakes because they never expect anyone to check their work. What if he really does know judges? He threatened me." "Honey, I've been practicing family law for 34 years. I've gone up against senators, CEOs, and one actual prince. Your husband might know people, but I know the law. And the law doesn't care about golf buddies or political donations." For the first time in days, Caroline felt something loosen in her chest. Hope, maybe. Or at least the possibility of hope. "I can't afford," she started. Ruth waved her hand. "We'll work something out. Payment plan. Contingency on the asset recovery. Whatever it takes." She met Caroline's eyes. "I've seen too many women like you walk out of here with nothing because they couldn't afford to fight. I'm not letting that happen again." "Why?" "Because 40 years ago, I was you. Different husband, same story. And someone helped me when I had nothing." Ruth stood and extended her hand. "So, Mrs. Wellington, do we have a deal?" Caroline shook it. "We have a deal." "Good. Now let's go find where your husband hid your money." The discovery process revealed more than Caroline expected. Ruth subpoenaed everything: bank records, credit statements, business accounts, tax returns. What came back painted a picture of a man who had been lying far longer than Caroline imagined. The affairs hadn't started with Victoria. There had been others. At least 3 that Ruth could trace through hotel bills and suspicious purchases. Jewelry Caroline never received. Dinners at restaurants she'd never visited. Weekend trips to cities Marcus claimed were for business. But that wasn't the worst of it. The business accounts told a different story. Marcus had been siphoning money from his company for years. Small amounts at first, then larger as he got bolder. Money that should have gone to shareholders, to employees, to business expenses, funneled into personal accounts, hidden under shell companies and fake names. "He's not just a cheater," Ruth said when they met to review the findings. "He's an embezzler, and he's been doing it under his employer's nose for at least 5 years." Caroline felt sick. "What does this mean for the divorce?" "For the divorce, everything. He has no leverage anymore. The moment I hint that we might involve law enforcement, he'll fold like a cheap suit." "But will you involve law enforcement?" Ruth studied her. "That's up to you. If I report what I've found, Marcus goes to prison. Your sons grow up with their father behind bars. Is that what you want?" Caroline thought about Ethan and Oliver. About the way Ethan still asked when Dad was coming home. About Oliver's face at the airport, disappointed, but not surprised, as if he'd expected betrayal all along. "I don't want to destroy him," she said slowly. "I just want what's fair, the money back, full custody, a chance to start over." Ruth nodded. "Then that's what we'll get. But understand, I'll hold this information in reserve. If he fights, if he threatens, if he tries any of his usual tricks, we release everything. Not to the police, to his employer, to his board of directors, to the newspapers. He'll be ruined." "He ruined himself. You're just deciding whether to show the world." Caroline drove home in a daze. All those years, she'd thought she was the problem. Too emotional, too demanding, not understanding enough of his stress, his work, his complicated inner life. And all along he'd been stealing from his own company, sleeping with other women, building an escape route while she raised his sons and kept his house, and believed, really believed, that she wasn't enough. The rage came slowly, not hot and explosive like at the airport, cold, deep, the kind of anger that settles into bone and stays. Marcus had underestimated her from the beginning. He'd married her because she was kind, accommodating, easy to manage. He'd controlled her with charm and criticism, with gifts and guilt, with the constant implication that she should be grateful for everything he provided. He never imagined she'd fight back. He never imagined she'd win. Caroline pulled into her driveway and sat in the dark car for a long time. Then she picked up her phone and called her mother. "Mom, I need you to bring the boys home. It's time for them to understand what's happening." "Are you sure? They deserve the truth, or at least a version of it they can handle." Caroline took a breath. "And I need to see their faces. I need to remember why I'm doing this. We'll be there tomorrow, sweetheart. Thank you, Mom, for everything. That's what family's for." Caroline hung up and walked into her empty house. Tomorrow, her sons would come home. Tomorrow, she'd have to explain divorce and separation and a future that looked nothing like the one they'd planned. But tonight she allowed herself one small victory. Marcus Wellington had thought he was untouchable. He was about to find out how wrong he was. The boys came home on a Tuesday. Caroline watched them climb out of her father's car, Ethan bouncing with energy despite the long drive, Oliver moving slowly, reading the situation like he always did. "Mom!" Ethan ran into her arms. "Grandma let us have ice cream every day, even for breakfast once. She spoils you." Caroline held him tight, breathing in the smell of her child. "I missed you so much." Oliver hung back until his brother released her. Then he stepped forward, studying her face. "You look different," he said quietly. "Good different or bad different? I don't know yet." He hugged her, then quickly, almost shyly. "Did you beat Dad?" Caroline pulled back, surprised by the question. "We're still figuring things out." "But you're winning." How did she answer that? How did she explain to an 8-year-old that there were no winners in a divorce, only survivors? "I'm not losing," she said finally. "That's what matters." Oliver nodded. It seemed to satisfy him. That night after dinner, Caroline sat both boys down at the kitchen table. "I need to tell you something important," she started. "About me and Dad." Ethan's face crumpled immediately. "Are you getting divorced?" "Yes, baby. We are." "Why?" Ethan's voice broke. "Why can't you just stop being mad at each other?" Caroline reached for his hand. "Sometimes moms and dads can't fix their problems. Not because they don't want to, but because the problems are too big. Do you understand?" "No." Ethan pulled his hand away. "I don't understand. I want Dad to come home. I want everything to be normal again." "I know you do. And I'm so sorry I can't give you that." Oliver sat silent through his brother's outburst. When Ethan finally ran to his room in tears, Oliver remained. "He'll be okay," Oliver said. "He just needs time." "What about you?" Oliver considered the question. "I'm glad that you're not pretending anymore. You and Dad both pretended everything was fine, but it wasn't. I could tell. It's better now that everyone knows the truth." Caroline's heart broke and mended in the same moment. Her son, 8 years old, carrying wisdom he shouldn't have to carry. "When did you get so smart?" she asked. "I don't know." Oliver shrugged. "I just pay attention." He went to check on his brother, then leaving Caroline alone with the weight of what she'd done. She'd broken her family. Or maybe Marcus had broken it years ago, and she was just finally acknowledging the damage. Either way, there was no going back now. Only forward. The next morning, Ruth called with news. Marcus's lawyer reached out. They want to settle. Caroline gripped the phone. "Already?" "Seems your husband had a conversation with his employer yesterday. My sources say it didn't go well. Someone tipped them off about irregularities in his accounts." "Someone." Ruth's voice carried a smile. "I may have mentioned to a mutual acquaintance that certain financial records might be worth reviewing. Purely in the interest of corporate transparency, of course." "They fired him." "Not yet, but he's been placed on administrative leave pending investigation, which means his leverage just evaporated. No job, no powerful friends willing to stick their necks out. He's desperate." Caroline sat down heavily. "What's he offering?" "Everything you asked for. Full custody. Return of the drained funds, plus additional compensation for emotional distress. The house paid off, and he'll sign an agreement never to contact you except through approved channels for co-parenting." It was more than she'd dared hope for. "What's the catch?" "He wants you to sign a non-disclosure agreement. Whatever you learned about his business dealings stays confidential. No talking to prosecutors, journalists, or his employers." Caroline thought about it. About Marcus in handcuffs. About newspaper headlines. About Ethan and Oliver visiting their father in prison. If I sign, he gets away with it. The embezzlement. Everything. From a legal standpoint, probably. His company might pursue civil action, but without your cooperation, criminal charges are unlikely. Is that fair? Ruth paused. Fair is a word for people who haven't been through a divorce. This is about what you can live with. Can you live with Marcus walking free if it means your sons have a stable father who can still be part of their lives, however small that part might be? Caroline looked out the window at the backyard where Ethan and Oliver used to play, while Marcus watched from the deck phone, always in hand, attention always elsewhere. "I want one more thing," she said. "Name it." "He has to tell the boys the truth. Not all of it, they're too young, but enough. He has to admit he made mistakes. He has to apologize to them himself, not through lawyers or letters, face to face." Ruth was quiet for a moment. "That's not a standard provision." "I don't care. If he wants my silence, he has to give them honesty. They deserve that much. I'll present it. But Caroline, he might refuse. Then he can explain to his former employers why money kept disappearing from their accounts. His choice." Ruth laughed. "You know, when you walked into my office, I thought you were just another scared woman hoping for crumbs. I was wrong. I was that woman. I'm not anymore." "No," Ruth agreed. "You're not." Marcus agreed to everything. The meeting happened at Ruth's office, neutral territory. Caroline sat on one side of the table, Marcus and his lawyer on the other. He looked different. Smaller somehow. The confidence that once filled every room he entered had deflated. He wore a wrinkled shirt, Marcus, who had never worn anything unironed in 12 years of marriage. "Before we sign," Caroline said, "I want to hear you say it." Marcus's lawyer leaned forward. "Mrs. Wellington, we've agreed to all terms. There's no need. I want to hear him say it." Marcus met her eyes for the first time since she'd walked in. Something flickered there. Shame, maybe, or its nearest relative. "I'm sorry," he said. The words came out flat, rehearsed. "For what?" "Caroline," his lawyer warned. "For what, Marcus?" He swallowed hard. "For the affairs. For taking the money. For lying. For all of it." "And the boys?" "I'll talk to them. I'll explain." He stopped, started over. "I'll tell them I made mistakes, that I'm sorry. That none of this is their fault. Because it isn't. I know. Caroline studied the man she'd married, the man she'd built a life with, the man who had betrayed her in every way a person could be betrayed. She felt nothing, not anger, not satisfaction, not even relief, just emptiness where love used to live. Then we're done, she said. The lawyers exchanged papers. Signatures were obtained, and just like that, 12 years of marriage ended in a conference room that smelled like stale coffee and printer ink. Caroline walked out without looking back. In the parking lot, her phone buzzed. Her mother. How did it go? It's over, Caroline typed back. Really over. Come home, sweetheart. Your boys are waiting. Caroline got in her car and drove. Behind her, a chapter closed forever. Ahead, something new was waiting to be written. 3 weeks after the divorce was finalized, Victoria Chen called. Caroline almost didn't answer. The number was unfamiliar, and she'd learned to be suspicious of unknown calls since the settlement. Reporters had somehow gotten her number. So had Marcus's former colleagues fishing for information. But something made her pick up. Mrs. Wellington. The voice was hesitant. Familiar in a way that made Caroline's stomach turn. This is Victoria. I know you probably don't want to talk to me, but please don't hang up. Caroline's grip tightened on the phone. Why would I want to hear anything you have to say? Because I have information about Marcus. Things you need to know. The divorce is final. I don't need to know anything about Marcus anymore. It's about your sons. Caroline went cold. What about my sons? Victoria was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice cracked. Can we meet, please? I know I have no right to ask, but this is important. I wouldn't call if it wasn't. Every instinct screamed no. This woman had helped destroy her marriage, had stood beside Marcus at that airport with a smile on her face, had known exactly what she was doing. But she'd said the magic words. Your sons. Where? Caroline heard herself ask. There's a coffee shop on Main Street. Been there. Do you know it? I know it. Tomorrow at 2 I'll be in the back. Caroline should have said no. Should have told Victoria to go to hell, to never contact her again, to choke on whatever information she thought was so important. Instead, she said, I'll be there. She didn't sleep that night. What could Victoria possibly know about Ethan and Oliver? Had Marcus said something to her? Done something? Was there another betrayal waiting to unfold? By morning, Caroline had convinced herself of a dozen different nightmares. She dropped the boys at school with a smile that felt like a mask. Mom, you look tired, Oliver observed. Always watching, always knowing. I didn't sleep well. I'm fine. You're lying. Caroline knelt down to his level. I have a meeting today, with someone I don't like very much. I'm nervous about it. Why are you meeting them if you don't like them? Because sometimes the people we don't like have things we need to hear. Oliver considered this. That sounds hard. It is, baby. But I'll be okay. He hugged her, then unprompted, fierce and quick. You're brave, Mom. Braver than you think. Caroline held on to those words all the way to the coffee shop. Victoria was already there when Caroline arrived. She looked different than she had at the airport. Thinner, paler. The confidence that had radiated from her that day was gone, replaced by something fragile and uncertain. Thank you for coming. Victoria stood, then sat again, unsure of the protocol. Can I get you something, coffee, tea? I don't want anything from you except information. Caroline sat across from her. You said this was about my sons. Talk. Victoria wrapped her hands around her cup. Her fingers trembled slightly. I didn't know, she started. About a lot of things. Marcus told me you were separated, that you'd agreed to see other people, that the marriage was over and everything but paperwork. And you believed him. I wanted to believe him. Victoria met her eyes. I know that's not an excuse. I just need you to understand I'm not a monster. I was stupid and selfish, but I'm not evil. I didn't come here to absolve you. I know. Victoria took a shaky breath. After the airport, after everything fell apart, Marcus changed. He blamed me. Said I ruined his life by being too obvious, by standing too close, by making you suspicious. You didn't make me suspicious. He made me suspicious with months of lies. I know that now. But back then I believed him. I apologized. I tried to make it up to him. Victoria's voice dropped. That's when I started seeing who he really was. Caroline leaned forward despite herself. What do you mean? The way he talked about you, about the boys. At first he was just angry. But then it became something else. Something colder. Victoria's hands tightened around her cup. He said things about how he'd make you pay. How he'd get the boys eventually, once he was back on his feet. How you'd regret ever crossing him. He signed away custody. It's done. Is it? Victoria looked up. Caroline, do you know why Marcus agreed to everything so quickly? Why he didn't fight? Because Ruth, my lawyer, had evidence of his embezzlement. He had no choice. That's part of it. But there's more. Victoria reached into her purse and pulled out a phone. He's been planning something. I don't know exactly what, but I heard phone calls, late at night when he thought I was asleep. What kind of phone calls? About the boys. About proving you're an unfit mother. About documenting your every mistake so he can go back to court when the time is right. Victoria slid the phone across the table. I recorded some of them. I don't know if they're admissible or whatever, but I thought you should know. Caroline stared at the phone like it was a snake. Why are you doing this? Why help me? Victoria's composure cracked. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Because I'm pregnant. And when I told Marcus, he said, she choked. He said to get rid of it. That he wasn't going to let another kid ruin his life. The words hung between them. He doesn't know I kept it, Victoria continued. I'm leaving. Moving back to California where my family is. But I couldn't leave without warning you. Whatever he did to you, to me, to everyone else, he's not done. Men like Marcus are never done until they've won. Caroline picked up the phone. What's on here? 3 recordings. Conversations with someone, I think it's a private investigator. And one with a lawyer. Not the one from the divorce. Someone new. Why would he need a new lawyer? I don't know. But I know it's not over for him. Victoria wiped her eyes. I'm sorry. For everything. I know it doesn't change anything, but I'm sorry. Caroline looked at the woman across from her. A month ago, she would have taken pleasure in Victoria's pain. Would have seen it as karma, as justice, as proof that betrayers got what they deserved. Now she just felt tired. Thank you for the warning, Caroline said finally. And for what it's worth, I hope California treats you better. Victoria nodded, unable to speak. Caroline left with the phone in her purse and fear coiling in her stomach. Marcus wasn't done. He was just getting started. Ruth listened to the recordings 3 times. Well, she said when they finished, he's dumber than I thought. What do you mean? He's planning to challenge custody based on your supposed instability. But he's doing it while under investigation for embezzlement, while unemployed, while living in a rental apartment because his assets are frozen. Ruth shook her head. No judge in the country would give him increased custody under these circumstances. Then why bother? Why spend money on a private investigator and a new lawyer? Because men like Marcus don't think in terms of winning or losing. They think in terms of control. He can't accept that you beat him. So he's going to make your life miserable until he feels like he's won something. Caroline's hands balled into fists. What do I do? Document everything. Every communication, every pickup and drop-off, every time he's late or cancels or says something inappropriate to the boys. We build a pattern of behavior. Ruth tapped the phone. And we hold on to this. If he tries anything, we show the judge exactly what kind of father he really is. I'm so tired. The words came out before Caroline could stop them. I thought it was over. I thought I could finally move on. Ruth reached across the desk and squeezed her hand. It will be over. But men like Marcus don't go quietly. You need to be prepared for a few more rounds before he finally accepts defeat. What if he never accepts it? Then we make him. Ruth smiled grimly. I've dealt with worse, honey. Trust me. Your husband is a bully, but he's a predictable one. And predictable bullies always lose eventually. Caroline nodded, trying to believe her. But that night, lying in bed, she couldn't shake Victoria's words. Men like Marcus are never done until they've won. What would Marcus do when he realized he couldn't win? The answer came sooner than expected. 2 weeks later, Caroline picked up the boys from their first weekend visit with Marcus. Ethan bounced out of his father's apartment building with his usual energy. Oliver walked behind him slowly, too slowly. His face was pale, his eyes red-rimmed. Oliver. Caroline knelt down. Sweetie, what happened? Oliver didn't answer. He just shook his head and climbed into the car. Caroline looked at Ethan. What happened this weekend? Ethan shrugged, suddenly quiet. Nothing. Boys, talk to me, please. Neither spoke during the drive home. That night, after Ethan fell asleep, Caroline found Oliver sitting on his bed staring at nothing. Can I come in? He nodded. She sat beside him. Whatever happened, you can tell me. I won't be angry. I just need to know. Oliver was quiet for so long that Caroline thought he wouldn't answer. Then, in a voice so small she barely heard it, he said, Dad asked us questions. What kind of questions? About you. About what you do when we're home. About whether you cry a lot. About whether you have friends over. Oliver's hands twisted in his lap. He wrote down everything we said. Caroline's blood went cold. He said he was just curious. Oliver continued. But it didn't feel like curious. It felt like a test, like we were supposed to say bad things about you. What did you tell him? The truth. That you're happy now. That you don't cry anymore. That you're a good mom. Oliver finally looked at her. He got mad when I said that. Not yelling mad, the other kind. The quiet kind that's worse. Caroline pulled her son into her arms. Her heart pounded with fury, but she kept her voice calm. You didn't do anything wrong. You know that, right? Telling the truth is always the right thing to do. I know. Oliver's voice was muffled against her shoulder. Mom, I don't want to go back there. He looks at us like we're tools, like we're something he can use. The words shattered something inside her. You won't have to, she promised. Not anymore. Really, really, I'll fix this. I don't know how yet, but I'll fix it. Oliver pulled back and looked at her with those two old eyes. I believe you. That night, after both boys were asleep, Caroline called Ruth. He's using visitation to gather ammunition, she said, her voice shaking with barely contained rage. He's interrogating 8-year-olds about whether their mother cries too much. That's textbook parental alienation in reverse, Ruth said. He's trying to coach them to say things that make you look bad. Oliver saw right through it, but Ethan is younger, more trusting. What if Marcus gets to him? What if he manipulates my son into saying things that aren't true? Then we file an emergency motion to modify visitation. The recordings Victoria gave us, combined with what Oliver just told you, establish a clear pattern of Marcus using the children as pawns. Will it work? It'll get us in front of a judge, and judges don't look kindly on parents who weaponize their children. Caroline paced her living room. I want supervised visitation, at minimum, until he proves he can see them without turning every visit into an intelligence-gathering mission. I'll file first thing tomorrow. After hanging up, Caroline stood at the window and watched the empty street. She thought about Marcus, about the man she'd married, about the father she'd hoped he would be. He'd never been that man. Maybe he'd never existed at all. The court date arrived faster than Caroline expected. Ruth had pulled strings, called in favors, made it clear that the children's welfare was at immediate risk. A family court judge agreed to hear their emergency motion within 10 days. Marcus showed up with his new lawyer, a sharp-faced woman named Patricia Vance, who had a reputation for aggressive tactics. They sat on the opposite side of the courtroom. Marcus, in a suit that looked freshly pressed, his expression calm and reasonable. The mask was back on. "Your Honor," Patricia began, "my client is simply trying to maintain a relationship with his sons. Mrs. Wellington has consistently attempted to alienate the children from their father. This motion is just another example of her pattern of obstruction." Ruth stood. "Your Honor, we have evidence that Mr. Wellington has been using visitation time to interrogate his children about their mother's behavior, keeping written notes of their responses and working with a private investigator to build a case for custody modification while pretending to accept the current arrangement." She submitted Victoria's recordings and Oliver's documented statement. The judge listened, read, watched Marcus's face carefully. "Mr. Wellington," the judge said finally, "can you explain why you would need to take notes during visits with your own children?" Marcus's lawyer jumped in. "Your Honor, my client was simply keeping a parenting journal, a recommended practice for divorced fathers trying to stay connected with their children. A parenting journal that includes questions about whether their mother has male visitors or how often she drinks wine at dinner." The judge's voice carried an edge now. Marcus shifted in his seat. The calm expression flickered. "I was concerned about their welfare," he said. "I have a right to know what environment they're living in." "You have a right to spend quality time with your children," the judge corrected. "You do not have a right to use them as informants against their mother." Ruth pressed forward. "Your Honor, we also have recordings of Mr. Wellington discussing with a private investigator how to document Mrs. Wellington's supposed instability. These recordings were made after the divorce was finalized, indicating that Mr. Wellington never intended to honor the custody agreement." The judge reviewed the transcripts. His expression hardened. "Mr. Wellington, I'm going to be very clear with you. This court awarded Mrs. Wellington primary custody because it was determined to be in the best interests of the children. Your attempts to undermine that custody through manipulation and surveillance are not only inappropriate, they're potentially illegal." Marcus's mask cracked. "Your Honor, I just want to see my sons. She's the one who—" "I've heard enough." The judge held up his hand. "Effective immediately, Mr. Wellington's visitation is suspended pending a full psychological evaluation. If that evaluation supports continued contact, visitation will be supervised by a court-appointed monitor." "Your Honor," Patricia started. "My decision is final. Mr. Wellington, I strongly suggest you use this time to reflect on what kind of father you want to be, because the one I'm seeing today is not one who deserves unsupervised access to children." The gavel came down. Marcus's face went white, then red, then something darker. Caroline didn't look at him. She kept her eyes forward, her hands steady, her breathing calm. But inside, something released. She'd won. For now, she'd won. Outside the courthouse, Marcus caught up with her. "This isn't over." His voice was low, dangerous. "You think you've won something today? You've won nothing. I will get those boys back. I will prove what you really are. And when I do—" "When you do what, Marcus?" Caroline turned to face him. "Destroy me. You've already tried that. Took my money, tried to take my children, manipulated everyone around you to believe your version of reality." She stepped closer. He actually stepped back. "But here's what you never understood. I'm not the woman you married. That woman died at an airport terminal when she watched her husband lie to her face in front of her sons. The woman standing here now, she's not afraid of you." Marcus's jaw tightened. "You should be." "No." Caroline shook her head. "You should be afraid of me. Because I have nothing left to lose and everything to protect. And there is nothing more dangerous than a mother protecting her children." She turned and walked away. Behind her, she heard Patricia murmuring to Marcus, pulling him back, warning him that people were watching. "Good. Let them watch. Let them see what happened when a man like Marcus Wellington finally met someone he couldn't control. That night, Caroline let the boys stay up late. They ate ice cream for dinner and watched movies until Ethan fell asleep on the couch. Oliver stayed awake, curled up beside his mother, processing in his quiet way. "Mom." "Yes, baby." "Is Dad going to stop now?" Caroline thought about lying, about protecting him with false comfort. But Oliver had never needed lies. He needed truth. "I don't know," she admitted. "But I know this, whatever he does, I'm ready. And you and Ethan are safe. That's what matters." Oliver nodded slowly. "I'm glad you're our mom." Caroline's throat tightened. "I'm glad you're my son. Both of us. Both of you. Always." He fell asleep soon after, his head heavy on her shoulder, his breathing slow and peaceful. Caroline stayed awake for a long time watching her son sleep. The battle wasn't over. Ruth had warned her that men like Marcus never quit easily. There would be more hearings, more motions, more attempts to regain control. But for the first time since that morning at the airport, Caroline felt something she hadn't dared to feel. Hope. Not hope that everything would be easy. Not hope that Marcus would suddenly become the father his sons deserved. Hope that she could handle whatever came next. Hope that she was strong enough to protect her family. Hope that the worst was behind her. The phone call came at midnight. Caroline fumbled for her phone, heart pounding. Late-night calls never brought good news. "Mrs. Wellington." A man's voice, official. "This is Detective Morrison with the Virginia Police Department. I'm calling about your ex-husband, Marcus Wellington." Caroline sat up. "What happened?" "He's been arrested. About an hour ago, he was pulled over for erratic driving. When officers approached the vehicle, they found him intoxicated and in possession of materials suggesting he intended to violate a court order." "What materials?" The detective paused. "He had photographs of your home, your children's school, your daily schedule, along with a notebook containing detailed plans for what he called reclaiming what's mine." Caroline's blood turned to ice. "We don't believe he intended immediate harm," the detective continued carefully. "But given the court's recent ruling and the nature of these materials, he's being held on charges related to stalking and violation of a protective order." "I don't have a protective order." "You do now. The court issued an emergency order based on the evidence. A judge will formalize it tomorrow, but for tonight, he can't come within 500 feet of you or your children." Caroline couldn't speak. "Mrs. Wellington, are you still there?" "Yes," she whispered. "I'm here. Officers will patrol your neighborhood tonight as a precaution. If you see or hear anything suspicious, call 911 immediately." "Thank you. I will." After hanging up, Caroline sat in the dark, shaking. Marcus had been watching her, photographing her home, planning something he called reclaiming what's mine. Her sons weren't property. She wasn't property. But in Marcus's mind, they had always been exactly that. Caroline got up, checked the locks on every door and window, then looked in on her sleeping sons. Ethan had kicked off his blankets. She covered him again, smoothing his hair. Oliver was awake, watching her in the darkness. "Something happened," he said. "Not a question. Your father made some bad choices tonight. He's not going to be able to see you for a while." "Good." The word was cold, final. The voice of a child who had finally stopped hoping his father would change. "I'm sorry, baby." "Don't be." Oliver rolled over, facing the wall. He made his choices. Now he has to live with them. Caroline stood in the doorway for a long moment, watching her son's silhouette in the darkness. 8 years old, and already learning that love wasn't enough. That sometimes the people who should protect you were the ones you needed protection from. She closed the door quietly and went back to her room. Tomorrow, there would be lawyers and court orders and police reports. Tonight, there was only this. Her sons safe in their beds, locks on the doors, and the quiet certainty that whatever Marcus had planned, he had failed. He had finally, completely, irreversibly failed. And Caroline was still standing. Marcus Wellington was sentenced to 18 months in federal prison. The stalking charges had been just the beginning. Once investigators started digging, they found everything Ruth had uncovered and more. The embezzlement, the hidden accounts, the shell companies, years of fraud that his former employer had been too embarrassed to prosecute until the police handed them evidence they couldn't ignore. Caroline sat in the courtroom for the sentencing. She didn't have to be there. Ruth had told her it might be traumatic that closure didn't always come from watching someone you once loved be led away in handcuffs. But she needed to see it. She needed to know it was real. Marcus stood before the judge in an orange jumpsuit, his expensive haircut grown out, his confident posture deflated. When the sentence was read, he didn't react. He just stared straight ahead, hollow, like a man who had finally run out of moves. Then, just before the bailiffs led him away, he turned and looked at Caroline. Their eyes met across the courtroom. She expected to see rage, hatred, the dangerous coldness she'd learned to recognize. Instead, she saw something worse. Nothing. Marcus looked at her like she was a stranger, like 12 years of marriage, 2 children, a lifetime of shared memories had simply been erased. She was nobody to him now, just another person who had gotten in his way. The bailiffs took his arms. He turned away without a word, and Caroline finally understood. She had never been real to Marcus. Not as a person, not as a partner, not as the mother of his children. She had been a role, a function, a supporting character in the story of his life. When she stopped playing her part, he simply wrote her out. The realization should have hurt. Instead, it set her free. Outside the courthouse, Ruth found her standing alone. "How do you feel?" Caroline considered the question. "Empty, but not sad. Is that strange?" "Not at all. You've been carrying this weight for so long, your body doesn't know what to do without it. What happens now?" "Now?" Ruth smiled. "Now you live. You raise those boys. You figure out who Caroline Hayes is when she's not fighting for survival." "I don't know who that is." "That's the exciting part. You get to find out." Caroline drove home slowly, taking back roads she hadn't used in years. The world looked different somehow. Brighter. More open. Like she'd been viewing everything through a dirty window that had finally been cleaned. The boys were at school. The house was empty. She stood in the kitchen where she'd made 1,000 meals, cleaned 1,000 messes, swallowed 1,000 complaints. This was her house now. Hers alone. She could paint the walls any color she wanted. She could rearrange the furniture. She could play music at midnight, or eat ice cream for breakfast, or cry in the living room without anyone asking her to calm down. For the first time in 13 years, her life belonged entirely to her. The feeling was terrifying, and wonderful, and completely overwhelmingly new. The boys adjusted faster than Caroline expected. Ethan, always the more emotional twin, went through a brief period of asking about his father. Where was Daddy? When was Daddy coming home? Why couldn't they visit him? Caroline answered honestly in terms an 8-year-old could understand. Daddy made some very bad choices. He has to spend time away because of those choices. It's not your fault. You're still loved. Eventually, the questions stopped. Oliver never asked at all. He simply accepted the new reality with the same quiet pragmatism he brought to everything. His father was gone. Life continued. He had homework to finish. But Caroline noticed changes in him too, subtle ones. He laughed more easily. He talked about school without being prompted. He started sleeping through the night without the restlessness that had plagued him for months. One evening, about 6 weeks after the sentencing, Oliver looked up from his homework. "Mom, yes, baby. I'm glad you're happy now." Caroline set down the dish she'd been drying. "What makes you say that? You hum. When you're doing stuff around the house, you didn't used to hum." She hadn't even noticed. "You're right," she said softly. "I didn't used to. I like it. Oliver returned to his math problems. It makes the house feel different. Good different. Yeah. He didn't look up, but she could see the small smile on his face. Good different. The changes came slowly then, all at once. Caroline went back to work full-time, picking up freelance design projects that had languished during the chaos of the divorce. Clients she'd neglected reached out. New opportunities appeared. Her mother, who had always believed in her talent, helped with childcare during deadline crunches. Money was tight but manageable. The house was paid off thanks to the settlement. Child support arrived reliably drafted directly from Marcus's frozen assets by court order. She wasn't rich, but she wasn't drowning. She started running in the morning, something she'd wanted to do for years but never found the time. The neighborhood at dawn was quiet and clean, and she discovered she could think clearly while her body moved. Problems that seemed insurmountable at midnight became manageable by the time she finished her 3rd mile. She reconnected with friends she'd pushed away during her marriage. Women she'd known since college, since the boys were babies, since before Marcus had slowly isolated her from everyone who might see through him. "I'm sorry I disappeared," she told her oldest friend Sarah over coffee one afternoon. "I don't even know how it happened. One day I had a full life, and the next I was living in this tiny box Marcus had built around me." Sarah shook her head. "You don't have to apologize. We knew something was wrong. We just didn't know how to help." "Did you try?" "Once, about 3 years ago. I called to invite you to lunch and Marcus answered your phone. He said you were too busy for socializing, that you'd call me when things settled down." Caroline's stomach twisted. "He never told me you called." "I figured. That's why I kept sending birthday cards. I wanted you to know I was still here." Tears pricked Caroline's eyes. "I thought everyone had given up on me." "Honey, we were just waiting for you to find your way out." Sarah reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "And you did." Months passed. The rhythm of their new life settled into something comfortable, predictable, safe. Caroline learned to trust the quiet, to stop waiting for the next crisis, to believe slowly that the worst was really over. Then David Mercer walked into her life. She met him at the boys' school, a parent volunteer event setting up for the annual fall festival. Caroline was untangling strings of lights that someone had stored badly when a voice behind her said, "Those look like they've been through a war." She turned. A man stood there about her age with kind eyes and an apologetic smile. "Sorry, didn't mean to startle you. I'm David. My daughter Emma is in the 3rd grade. Caroline, my boys are in Mrs. Patterson's class. The twins, I've heard about them. Emma says Oliver helps her with math sometimes." Caroline smiled despite herself. "That sounds like Oliver. He's got more patience than I do." David laughed. It was an easy sound, unrehearsed, genuine. "Can I help with the lights, I mean? I've got some experience with impossible tangles. Comes with having a 9-year-old who crafts obsessively." They worked side by side for the next hour, talking about nothing important. Schools, the neighborhood, the challenge of raising kids alone. "You're divorced?" Caroline asked carefully. "Widowed, 3 years ago. Cancer." David's hands kept moving, untangling lights with practiced patience. "It's strange how people don't know how to talk about it. Divorced, they understand. Widowed makes them uncomfortable." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. It's just a fact now. Part of my story." He glanced at her. "What about you?" "Divorce. Recently. Very complicated." "They usually are." Caroline found herself telling him more than she intended. Not the details, not Marcus or the airport or the court battles, but the shape of it. The fear, the relief, the strange feeling of starting over when you thought your life was already built. David listened without judgment, asked questions that showed he actually cared about the answers, didn't offer advice or try to fix anything. When the lights were finally untangled, he helped her hang them, then walked her to her car. "This was nice," he said. "The company, I mean. I don't get much adult conversation these days." "Me neither. Everything is either work calls or explaining to 8-year-olds why they can't have dessert before dinner." David laughed again. That warm, easy sound. Would you want to get coffee sometime? No pressure? Just coffee. Caroline hesitated. She wasn't ready for dating. Wasn't sure she'd ever be ready. The wound Marcus had left was still raw, still tender to the touch. But David wasn't asking for anything complicated. Just coffee. Just conversation. Just the simple pleasure of being seen by another adult. Coffee sounds nice, she heard herself say. They exchanged numbers. He waved as she drove away. It wasn't love at first sight. It wasn't fireworks or destiny or any of the things Caroline had believed in when she was young. It was just possibility. And possibility, she was learning, was enough. Their first coffee turned into a second. Then a third. Then dinners at quiet restaurants where they talked until the staff started stacking chairs. David was everything Marcus wasn't. Patient where Marcus was demanding. Honest where Marcus was manipulative. Present where Marcus was always somewhere else, thinking about something else, wanting something else. He told her about his wife Emily, about her diagnosis, her fight, her final months. He cried when he talked about it, unashamed, comfortable with his own grief in a way that surprised Caroline. "Don't you worry what people think?" she asked once, showing emotion like that. "Why would I hide the fact that I loved someone, that I lost her?" David shook his head. Grief isn't weakness. It's proof that something mattered. Caroline thought about her own grief. Not for Marcus, she felt nothing for him anymore, but for the life she'd imagined, the family she'd thought she was building, the future that had evaporated the moment she saw him at that airport. "I don't know how to grieve," she admitted. "I don't even know what I'm grieving. The marriage was a lie. The man I thought I married never existed. How do you mourn something that wasn't real?" "Maybe you're not mourning him. Maybe you're mourning the years you lost. The person you could have been if you hadn't spent so long believing his lies." The words hit her harder than she expected. She looked away, blinking back tears. "Sorry," David said quickly. "That was too much. I have a tendency to—" "No." Caroline met his eyes. "It's not too much. It's exactly right. That's what I'm grieving. The me I lost. The me I might have been." David reached across the table and took her hand. Not romantically, just humanly. One person connecting with another in a moment of honest pain. "She's not gone," he said quietly. "That version of you, she's still in there. You're just getting reacquainted." Caroline didn't pull away. For the first time in years, being touched didn't make her want to flinch. Didn't make her wonder what the person wanted from her. "How do you do that?" she asked. "Do what? Say exactly the right thing." David smiled sadly. "Practice. 3 years of therapy and a lot of very bad days taught me that feelings aren't puzzles to solve. They're just things to sit with. I've never been good at sitting with feelings. That's okay. I can teach you. If you want." She did want. For the first time since the airport, Caroline wanted something for herself. Not for the boys, not for her mother. Not because she should, or had to, or was expected to. Just because she wanted it. "Okay," she said. "Teach me." The boys met David on a Sunday afternoon. Caroline had agonized over the timing. Too soon, and they might think she was replacing their father. Too late, and it might seem like she was hiding something. Oliver predictably had figured it out before she said anything. "You're seeing someone," he announced over breakfast, 2 days before the planned meeting. "A man." Caroline nearly choked on her coffee. "What makes you say that? You check your phone more, and you smile at it sometimes. And you've been wearing that necklace Grandma gave you that you said was too fancy for every day. 8 years old, and nothing got past him." "His name is David," Caroline admitted. "He's very kind. I'd like you to meet him." "Is he going to be our new dad?" "No, baby. Nobody's replacing your dad. David is just a friend, a special friend." Oliver considered this. "Does he have kids?" "A daughter. Emma. She's in third grade. I know, Emma. She's okay. Oliver returned to his cereal. Fine. We can meet him. Ethan, who had been listening silently, finally spoke up. What if we don't like him? Then I want to know about it. Your opinion matters to me. Really? Really? Ethan nodded slowly. Okay. But if he's mean, I'm telling Grandma. Caroline laughed. Deal. The meeting went better than Caroline had dared hope. David arrived with Emma, a bright-eyed girl, with her father's easy smile. The kids circled each other warily at first, the way children do, assessing testing, deciding whether this stranger was worth their time. Then Ethan accidentally knocked over a glass of juice, and everyone scrambled to clean it up. And somehow the awkwardness dissolved in the chaos of paper towels and apologies, and Emma's declaration that she'd once spilled an entire pitcher of lemonade on her grandmother's cat. By the end of the afternoon, the three kids were playing in the backyard, while Caroline and David watched from the kitchen. That went well, David said quietly. Better than I expected. Oliver kept watching me, like he was waiting for me to do something wrong. Caroline sighed. He's protective. He's seen a lot. More than a kid should see. He's smart. And he loves you. Those are good things. I know. I just wish he could be a regular kid sometimes, without all the weight he carries. David was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Emma was the same way after Emily died. She became my caretaker, watched me constantly, made sure I ate, reminded me to sleep. She was 6 years old, and she thought it was her job to keep me alive. How did you get her to stop? I got better. Not perfect, never perfect, but better. And when she saw I was okay, she slowly let herself be a kid again. He looked at Caroline. Oliver will do the same. Once he sees that you're really truly okay, that you don't need him to protect you anymore. Caroline watched her sons through the window. Oliver was showing Emma something on his phone while Ethan chased a squirrel across the yard. I want to be okay, she said. For them. For me. You're getting there. David touched her shoulder gently. And you don't have to do it alone. The seasons changed. Spring melted into summer. Summer cooled into fall. David became a fixture in their lives. Not overwhelming, not demanding, just present. He helped with homework when Carolyn worked late. He taught the boys how to grill hamburgers without burning them. He listened to Oliver's complicated feelings about his father with patience that never wavered. One evening after the kids were in bed, Caroline and David sat on the porch, watching fireflies blink in the darkness. I never thought I'd feel this way again, Caroline said quietly. After everything, I thought that part of me was broken forever. What part? The part that believes in good things, that trusts someone enough to let them close. David was quiet for a moment. Can I tell you something? Anything. After Emily died, I was sure I'd never love anyone again. Not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't think I had anything left to give. I was empty, hollowed out. What changed? Time. Therapy. Learning that love isn't a finite resource. You don't run out of it. He turned to look at her. What I feel for you doesn't take anything away from what I felt for Emily. It's just different love, new love. Love that grew from the person I became after I lost her. Caroline felt tears prick her eyes. I don't know if I know how to love anyone. Marcus took so much from me. Made me doubt everything I felt, everything I believed about myself. Then don't worry about love right now. Just worry about today. About this moment. David took her hand. Can you be here with me right now without worrying about what it means or where it's going? I think so. Then that's enough. For now, that's enough. They sat in comfortable silence, hands intertwined, watching the fireflies dance. Caroline didn't know what the future held. She didn't know if this relationship would last, if David would stay, if her heart could fully heal from everything Marcus had done. But for the first time in years, she wasn't afraid of not knowing. She was just present. Here. Alive. And that she was learning was everything. The phone call came on a Tuesday afternoon 6 months after Marcus's sentencing. Caroline was at her desk working on a design project when Ruth's number appeared on her screen. "Ruth, is everything okay?" "I have news." Ruth's voice was careful, measured. "About Marcus." Caroline's stomach dropped. "What happened?" "He's being released early. Good behavior overcrowding, issues, the usual bureaucratic nonsense. He'll be out in 3 weeks." The world tilted. "But he was sentenced to 18 months. That's barely a year." "I know. I fought it." His lawyer argued that he's not a danger to anyone, that he's shown genuine remorse, that continued incarceration serves no rehabilitative purpose. "And they believed that," Ruth sighed. "The system isn't perfect, you know that." Caroline's hands were shaking. She gripped the desk to steady them. "What does this mean for the protective order?" "It stays in place. He can't contact you or the boys. Can't come within 500 feet of your home or their school. If he violates it, he goes straight back to prison. And if he doesn't violate it, if he's smart this time—" Silence. "Then he's free to rebuild his life," Ruth said finally. "Just not anywhere near yours." After hanging up, Caroline sat motionless for a long time. Marcus was getting out. In 3 weeks, the man who had stalked her, manipulated her children, stolen her money, tried to destroy her, that man would walk free. The fear she thought she'd conquered came rushing back. The hypervigilance. The checking of locks. The constant, exhausting awareness that danger could be around any corner. She'd built a new life. A good life. A life with David and the boys, and hope for the future. Would Marcus let her keep it? Or would he find a way to take this from her too? That night she told David everything. He listened without interrupting. When she finished, he didn't offer solutions or reassurances. He just held her while she cried. "I thought I was done being afraid," she whispered. "I thought I was finally safe." "You are safe. Nothing has changed. He's still bound by the protective order. He still has everything to lose if he comes near you. But he's out there, walking around, breathing the same air. It makes everything feel fragile again." David pulled back to look at her. "You beat him, Caroline, in every way that matters. He's a convicted felon who lost his family, his career, his money, his reputation. You have everything he tried to take. That doesn't change because he served less time than he deserved. What if he tries again? What if he finds some new way to hurt me? Then we deal with it, together. You're not the woman you were when this started. You have people now. Ruth, your parents, me." David touched her face gently. "You're not alone anymore." Carolyn closed her eyes. Let his words sink in. She wasn't alone anymore. That was the difference. That was what Marcus had never understood. He'd tried to isolate her, to cut her off from everyone who might help, to make her dependent on him alone. Instead, she'd built a fortress of people who loved her, and no matter what Marcus did next, that fortress would hold. "Okay," she said finally. "Okay. We deal with it together." "Together," David agreed. 3 weeks later, Marcus Wellington walked out of federal prison. Caroline didn't know where he went, didn't want to know. Ruth kept her informed of the essentials. He'd moved to another state, was living with a distant relative, had found work at a small accounting firm that either didn't know or didn't care about his history. He made no attempt to contact her. No calls, no emails, no mysterious cars parked outside her house. Maybe he'd finally learned, or maybe he was just waiting. Caroline refused to let the uncertainty consume her. She went to work, raised her boys, built her relationship with David, lived her life. But she kept the locks changed, kept Ruth's number on speed dial, kept watching. Because some lessons once learned could never be unlearned. And Caroline had learned that the people who hurt you most were often the ones you never saw coming. 2 years passed. Caroline marked the time not in calendar pages, but in the small victories that accumulated like coins in a jar. Oliver's first A+ in English. Ethan finally learning to ride a bike without training wheels. The morning she woke up and realized she hadn't thought about Marcus in over a week. David proposed on a quiet evening in September. No grand gestures, no crowds. Just the two of them on her porch, fireflies blinking in the darkness, his voice steady as he asked if she'd build a life with him. "I'm not asking you to forget anything that happened," he said, holding a simple ring between his fingers. "I'm asking you to believe that good things can happen too, that you deserve them." Caroline looked at the ring, looked at David, looked at the life she'd fought so hard to create. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I'll marry you." The boys took the news better than expected. Ethan whooped and asked if this meant they'd get a bigger house. Oliver studied David for a long moment, then nodded once. "You make her happy," Oliver said. "That's what matters." "I try," David replied seriously. "Every day I try." "Good. Keep trying." It was, Caroline realized, the closest thing to a blessing her son knew how to give. Emma was thrilled. She'd been asking for siblings since she could talk, and the prospect of 2 brothers, even stepbrothers, sent her into planning mode immediately. Shared bedrooms were discussed. Bathroom schedules were negotiated. The merging of 2 families began in earnest. The wedding was planned for spring. Small ceremony. Close family. Nothing elaborate. Caroline wanted it that way. She'd had the big wedding with Marcus, 300 guests, designer dress, a cake that cost more than her first car. All that spectacle hadn't protected her from anything. This time, she wanted truth, simplicity, people who actually cared about them. Her mother cried when she heard the news. "I prayed for this," Margaret said, clutching Caroline's hands. "Every night since you left that man, I prayed you'd find someone who deserved you." "Mom, you don't have to. Let me say this." Margaret's voice was fierce. "You are the strongest person I know. What you survived, what you built after most people would have crumbled. But you didn't. You fought. You protected those boys. You chose yourself when everyone told you to compromise. I almost didn't. So many times I almost gave up. But you didn't. That's what matters." Margaret smiled through her tears. "David is a good man, but you don't need him to save you. You already saved yourself. He's just lucky enough to love you now." The words stayed with Caroline for days. She'd spent so long believing she needed saving. First by Marcus, who promised security and stability. Then by Ruth, who gave her legal weapons to fight back. Then by David, whose kindness felt like medicine for wounds she couldn't see. But her mother was right. She'd saved herself. Everyone else had just helped her remember she was worth saving. The letter arrived 3 weeks before the wedding. No return address. Handwriting she recognized immediately despite the years that had passed. Caroline's hands trembled as she opened it. The words were brief, carefully chosen. Nothing that could be used against him in court. "I heard you're getting married. I hope you find whatever you're looking for. I've had a lot of time to think about the mistakes I made. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I understand now what I lost. Not you, I never really had you, but the chance to be someone different, someone better. Take care of the boys. They're lucky to have you as their mother. M." Caroline read it 3 times. Then she called Ruth. "He sent me a letter." "What? That's a clear violation of the protective order. I can have him—" "Wait. Just listen." Caroline read the letter aloud. Ruth was quiet for a moment. "That's unexpected." "Is it sincere? Does it matter?" Caroline thought about it. "I don't know. Maybe. Maybe I need to know if he actually changed or if this is just another manipulation." "Honey, here's what I've learned after 34 years of family law. People like Marcus sometimes do change. Prison can do that. Losing everything can do that. But whether he's changed or not is his journey, not yours. What do I do with the letter? Whatever you want. Burn it. Frame it. Use it as a bookmark. He doesn't get to take up space in your head anymore unless you choose to let him. That night, Caroline showed the letter to David. He read it silently, his expression unreadable. When he finished, he handed it back. How do you feel? Confused, angry, a little sad. Sad. For the man he could have been, for the father the boys deserved. Caroline folded the letter carefully. I spent so long hating him, but hate takes energy, and I don't want to give him any more of mine. So what do you want to do? I want to let it go, not forgive. I don't think I can do that. But release. Stop carrying him around like a weight I have to bear forever. David nodded slowly. Then let's do that. Together. They went to the backyard. Caroline struck a match and touched it to the corner of the letter. The paper caught quickly. Flames ate through Marcus's words, turning them to ash and smoke that drifted up into the night sky. Oliver appeared at the back door. Mom, what are you doing? Letting go of something old, making room for something new. He watched the last of the paper burn. Was it from Dad? Yes. What did it say? Caroline considered lying, protecting him from yet another complicated emotion. But Oliver had earned the truth. He'd always earned it. He said he understands what he lost, that he hopes I find happiness. Oliver was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, Good. Good that he understands, or good that you burned it? Both. Oliver's voice was steady. He had his chance. Now it's yours. He went back inside. David put his arm around Caroline. That's quite a kid you've got there. I know. She watched the last ember fade. Sometimes I think he's raising me instead of the other way around. The wedding day arrived with spring sunshine and the smell of blooming flowers. Caroline wore a simple white dress. No veil, no train. Just fabric that moved when she walked and made her feel beautiful without making her feel like a costume. The ceremony was held in her mother's backyard. 30 people. Folding chairs. A local pastor who'd known Margaret for 20 years. Caroline walked herself down the aisle. No one gave her away. She wasn't property to be transferred. She was a woman making a choice, eyes open, heart full, walking toward a future she'd built with her own hands. David waited at the makeshift altar, Emma beside him, tears already streaming down his face. You're crying, Caroline whispered when she reached him. Happy tears. The best kind. Oliver stood on Caroline's side, Ethan fidgeting beside him. When the pastor asked if anyone objected, Ethan loudly whispered, Can we eat cake now? And everyone laughed. The vows were simple, honest. Nothing about obeying or submitting, or becoming one. I promise to show up, David said. Every day, even when it's hard, even when I'm tired, even when we disagree. I promise to be present. I promise to trust you, Caroline said. Even when I'm scared, even when my past tells me to run, I promise to believe in this, in us, in the family we're building. They exchanged rings. The pastor pronounced them married. And when David kissed her, Caroline felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not the fragile peace of someone waiting for the next disaster. Not the exhausted peace of someone too tired to fight anymore. Real peace. Solid. Lasting. Earned. She was finally home. The reception was chaos in the best possible way. 3 kids hyped up on sugar, relatives telling embarrassing stories, her father giving a toast that made everyone cry, and then immediately pivoting to a joke that made everyone groan. Caroline danced with David, with her sons, with Emma, who declared her the best stepmom ever, even though they'd barely been married an hour. She danced with her mother, who held her tight and whispered, "Your grandmother would be so proud of you." She even danced alone for one song, just swaying in the middle of the yard, eyes closed, letting the music wash over her. Ruth appeared beside her when the song ended. The older woman had come despite claiming she didn't do weddings. "You clean up nice," Ruth said. "So do you. I've never seen you out of a suit." "Don't get used to it," Ruth smiled. "I wanted to give you something." She handed Caroline an envelope. "What is this?" "Your final bill, paid in full." Caroline opened it. Inside was a receipt marked $0 owed. "Ruth, I can't accept this. You worked for over a year on my case. And I got paid. From the settlement, remember? But there were costs, expenses, the appeal filing when Marcus. Consider it a wedding gift." Ruth's voice softened. "You gave me something too, you know. Hope. After 34 years of watching people destroy each other in court, watching you rebuild instead of just survive. That matters." Caroline hugged her. The older woman stiffened for a moment, then relaxed. "Thank you," Caroline whispered, "for everything. Go dance with your husband. That's thanks enough." Late in the evening, Caroline found Oliver sitting alone watching the adults celebrate. "Hey you, why aren't you dancing with Emma? She's been looking for you." "I'm thinking." "About what?" Oliver looked at her with those two old eyes. "About how different everything is. 2 years ago we were at that airport. You were crying in the bathroom at Grandma's house. Ethan wouldn't stop asking when Dad was coming home." "I remember. Now you're married to David. We have a sister. Dad's gone." Oliver paused. "It doesn't feel real sometimes." Caroline sat beside him. "Does it feel bad?" "No, just different. Big." He struggled for words. "Like we went through something really hard, and now we're on the other side, and I keep waiting for something bad to happen again." "That feeling might take a while to go away. It's okay to be careful, to protect yourself." "But you're not careful anymore. You trusted David. You got married. Aren't you scared?" Caroline thought about all the nights she'd lain awake, terrified of making another mistake. All the times she'd almost pushed David away because letting him in felt too dangerous. "I'm terrified," she admitted. "But I decided that being scared wasn't a good enough reason to miss out on something good. Fear kept me safe for a while, but it also kept me stuck." "How do you know David won't hurt you like Dad did?" "I don't. Not for certain. No one can promise that." She took her son's hand. "But I know who I am now. I know I can survive hard things. So even if something goes wrong, I trust myself to handle it." Oliver absorbed this. "That's kind of smart." "I have my moments." He almost smiled. "Mom? Yes. I'm glad you're happy. You deserve it. So do you, baby. So do you." They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the party wind down around them. 1 year later, Caroline stood in an airport terminal. Not the same one. A different city, a different gate, a different chapter of her life. But airports always brought back the memories now, whether she wanted them to or not. She was traveling for work. A design conference in Seattle. David had encouraged her to go. "You've been wanting to expand your freelance work. This could open doors." "But the kids have me, and your mom is 10 minutes away. We'll survive 3 days." So she'd gone. Nervous and excited and proud of herself for doing something just for her. Now, waiting at the gate for her return flight, she watched the crowds flow past. Families reuniting, couples saying goodbye, business travelers staring at phones. 3 years ago, an airport had been the site of her destruction. Now it was just a building. A place between places. Nothing more. Her phone buzzed. A photo from David. All 3 kids covered in flour, apparently attempting to make pancakes. The caption read, "We're fine. Mostly. The kitchen may need work." Caroline laughed out loud. A woman beside her glanced over. "Good news. The best kind. My family being ridiculous while I'm away." That's love. The woman smiled. The ridiculous parts are the best parts. Caroline thought about that as she boarded the plane. The ridiculous parts. The flower explosions. The arguments over who got the last slice of pizza. Ethan's knock-knock jokes that never made sense. Oliver's dramatic sighs when asked to do chores. Emma's detailed explanations of whatever book she was reading. The ridiculous parts were the best parts, because they were real, messy, imperfect, human. Everything her marriage to Marcus hadn't been. She'd traded perfect for real, and she'd never been happier. The flight home was smooth. Caroline dozed, dreamed of nothing, woke feeling rested for the first time in days. David met her at the airport, with all 3 kids in tow. "Mom?" Ethan launched himself at her. "We made pancakes." "Well, David made pancakes. I supervised." "That explains the flour in your hair?" "That's strategic flour, for flavor." Oliver hung back, but his face lit up when she hugged him. "How was the conference?" "Good. I made some connections. Might have some new projects coming." "That's great, Mom." Emma bounced on her toes. Caroline, can we get ice cream on the way home? Dad said only if you said yes." "David said that, did he?" Caroline looked at her husband, who shrugged innocently. "I'm merely the messenger." "Ice cream it is, but real dinner first." "Deal." They walked through the terminal together, kids running ahead. David's hand warm in hers. Caroline paused at the exit, turned back to look at the terminal one last time. Different airport, different day, different life. But for just a moment, she saw herself as she'd been 3 years ago. Broken, terrified, holding her son's hands and wondering how she'd ever survive. That woman felt like a stranger now. No, Caroline corrected herself. Not a stranger. A version of herself she'd had to become in order to survive. A chrysalis she'd had to build before she could break free. "You okay?" David asked quietly. "More than okay." She squeezed his hand. "I was just thinking about how far we've come." Me, the boys, all of us." She smiled. "I used to be so afraid of airports, of what they represented, endings, betrayal, everything falling apart. And now..." Caroline watched her children push through the exit doors into the sunlight, their voices bright with excitement about ice cream and the weekend ahead. Now they're just airports, places that take you somewhere new. David kissed her forehead. "That's growth. That's survival." She looked up at him. "And love. And a really good therapist." He laughed. That warm, easy sound she'd fallen in love with. "Come on," he said. "Your ice cream awaits." They walked out together into the afternoon light. 3 months after the conference, Caroline got a call from an unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Unknown numbers still made her nervous even now, but something made her pick up. "Hello, Mrs. Mercer." A woman's voice, professional but warm. "This is Linda Chen, Victoria's mother." Caroline's breath caught. Victoria. The woman from the airport, the one who'd warned her about Marcus, the one who'd been pregnant with his child. "I remember you. Is Victoria okay?" "She's fine. Wonderful, actually. She wanted me to call because she wasn't sure you'd answer if you saw her name." "What's this about?" Linda paused. "She had a baby. A boy. He's almost 2 now." Caroline sat down slowly. Marcus's son. Out there somewhere. A half-brother to Oliver and Ethan. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because Victoria wants you to know that the boy will never be a burden to you. She's not seeking child support. She's not going to introduce him to Marcus. She wanted you to know he exists, and that she named him after her father, Daniel." "I see." "She also wanted me to tell you that watching you fight back, seeing someone stand up to Marcus and win, gave her the courage to keep her baby, to build a life on her own terms." Linda's voice wavered. You saved my daughter. You probably don't see it that way, but you did." Caroline didn't know what to say. All this time she'd thought of Victoria as a complication, a painful reminder, the other woman. But Victoria had been a victim too, manipulated by the same man, caught in the same web, and somehow Caroline's survival had become Victoria's inspiration. "Tell her thank you," Caroline said finally, "for warning me about Marcus, for giving me the evidence I needed. She helped save me too." "I'll tell her. And tell her I hope Daniel has a wonderful life, that he never knows the kind of man his father was." Linda was crying now. "Thank you. Thank you so much." After hanging up, Caroline sat in the quiet of her office for a long time. Life was strange. The people who hurt you could also create paths to healing. The wreckage of destroyed relationships could become the foundation for new ones. Nothing was simple. Nothing was clean. But somehow it all added up to something worth having. She went to find David. He was in the backyard teaching Ethan how to throw a football while Oliver read on the porch and Emma practiced cartwheels on the grass. "Hey," David said when he saw her face. "Everything okay?" "Yeah, just got some unexpected news." She watched the kids play. "I'll tell you tonight. It's not bad, just complicated. Life usually is. When did you get so wise?" "Around the same time I got so handsome." He grinned, which was birth, obviously. Caroline laughed and shoved his shoulder. "Humble, too. My best quality." She stood there watching her family, this impossible, imperfect, beautiful family she'd built from the ashes of everything she'd lost. Oliver caught her eye from the porch. He didn't wave or smile, but he nodded once. That small acknowledgement carried everything: understanding, approval, love in its quietest form. She nodded back. They were going to be okay. Not perfect, not fixed, not healed in any complete way, but okay. And okay, she'd learned, was more than enough. The final chapter didn't come with fanfare. It came on an ordinary Tuesday, 5 years after the airport. Caroline was making dinner. The kids were doing homework. David was grading papers at the kitchen table. The phone rang. "Caroline Mercer." A man's voice. Official. "Yes." "This is Detective Morrison. We spoke a few years ago about your ex-husband." Caroline's hand tightened on the phone. "I remember. I'm calling to inform you that Marcus Wellington passed away this morning. Heart attack. He was at his apartment in Ohio. They found him this afternoon." The words didn't compute at first. Marcus, dead. "Mrs. Mercer, are you there?" "Yes, I'm here." Her voice sounded distant, disconnected. "Thank you for letting me know. The reason I'm calling personally is because he left a letter. For you and your sons. It was with his attorney instructions to deliver it upon his death. How would you like me to proceed?" Caroline thought about the last letter Marcus had sent, the one she'd burned on her wedding night. "Send it," she said. "I'll decide what to do when I see it." After hanging up, she stood motionless in the kitchen. David looked up. "Caroline, Marcus is dead." The words fell into the room like stones into water. The kids stopped what they were doing. Oliver's head snapped up. "Dead," Ethan repeated. "Like forever dead." "Yes, baby. He had a heart attack." "Oh." Ethan looked confused, uncertain how to feel. "Is that bad? I mean, he was bad, but dying is bad too, right?" Oliver said nothing. His face was carefully blank. Caroline crossed the room and knelt beside her sons. "It's okay to feel confused. It's okay to feel sad or relieved or angry or nothing at all. Whatever you feel is valid." "I don't know what I feel," Ethan admitted. "That's okay too." Oliver finally spoke. "He was our father." "Yes." "But he wasn't a good one." "No, he wasn't. So I should feel sad because he was our father. But I don't feel sad." Oliver's voice cracked slightly. Does that make me a bad person? Caroline pulled both boys close. Nothing about you is bad. Your father made choices that hurt people. You get to decide how you feel about him. No one else gets to tell you how to grieve or whether to grieve at all. They stayed like that for a long time, the three of them tangled together, processing something that had no easy answers. David quietly ushered Emma upstairs, giving them space. Eventually, Ethan pulled back. Can we have ice cream? Now, ice cream helps when things are confusing. You always say that. Caroline smiled despite everything. Yeah, baby, we can have ice cream. The letter arrived a week later. Caroline opened it alone in the quiet of early morning before anyone else was awake. To Caroline, Oliver, and Ethan, it began. If you're reading this, I'm gone. Probably a relief to some of you. Maybe all of you. I wouldn't blame you. I spent the last few years thinking about the man I was. Not making excuses, I'm past that. Just trying to understand how I became someone capable of the things I did. I don't have good answers. Selfishness. Fear. A desperate need to control everything because I couldn't control myself. None of it justifies anything. To Caroline. You deserved better than me. I knew it the day we got married. I spent 12 years trying to keep you small because your strength scared me. I'm sorry. Not because I expect forgiveness. Just because you should hear it. To Oliver. You saw through me before anyone else did. That day at the airport, when you asked why I looked scared, you saw the truth I spent years hiding. You're going to be an extraordinary man. Not because of me. Despite me. To Ethan, I hope you don't remember me too well. I hope the bad memories fade and you get to build your life without my shadow over it. Be kinder than I was. It's not hard. The bar is very low. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not asking for redemption. Some things can't be redeemed. I just wanted you to know that at the end I finally understood what I lost. And it wasn't money or status or freedom. It was the chance to be loved by people who deserved better than what I gave them. Take care of each other. Marcus. Caroline read the letter 3 times. Then she gave it to the boys. Oliver read it silently, his face unreadable. When he finished, he handed it to Ethan, who struggled through the bigger words with his brother's help. What do you think? Caroline asked when they finished. It's weird, Ethan said. He sounds like a different person. Maybe he was, at the end. Does that change anything? Caroline considered the question carefully. I think it means he finally saw himself clearly. Whether that's enough? I don't know. Some damage can't be undone no matter how sorry someone is. Oliver folded the letter and handed it back to her. What are you going to do with it? What do you want me to do? Keep it. Oliver's voice was steady. Not for him. For us. So we remember that people can change, even when it's too late. Even when it doesn't fix anything. Caroline nodded. I'll keep it. That night, she put the letter in a box with her wedding photos from David the Kid's artwork, the small treasures of her new life. Not a memorial to Marcus, a reminder of where she'd been and how far she'd come. Years passed the way years do. Sometimes slow, sometimes rushing, always forward. Oliver graduated high school with honors, gave a speech about resilience that made Caroline cry so hard she needed 3 tissues. Ethan found his passion in music, spending hours at the piano, filling the house with melodies that seemed to come from somewhere beyond his 17 years. Emma became the sister the boys never knew they needed, fierce and loyal, ready to defend them against anyone or anything. David and Caroline grew old the way good couples do, arguing about small things, agreeing on big ones, finding new reasons to choose each other every day. Caroline never forgot the woman she'd been at that airport. But she stopped carrying her. That woman had served her purpose, had survived what needed surviving, had fought the battles that needed fighting. Now there was room for someone new, someone who laughed easily, who trusted carefully but fully, who had learned that strength wasn't about never falling, it was about getting up every single time. On the 10th anniversary of that day at the airport, Caroline woke early. She didn't mark the date anymore, not officially. But her body remembered even when her mind didn't. She made coffee, sat on the porch, watched the sun rise over the life she'd built. David found her there an hour later. Couldn't sleep. Anniversary. My body keeps track even when I don't. He sat beside her. How do you feel? Caroline thought about it. Really thought. Grateful, she said finally. Not for what happened. That will never be something I'm grateful for. But for who I became because of it. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. I used to think I'd never get past it. That the airport would be the defining moment of my life forever. But it's not. It's just one moment among thousands. Important, yes, but not everything. What's everything? Caroline looked at him. At this man who had loved her through fear and healing and everything in between. This, she said, right here, this moment, and all the ones that come after. David took her hand. I like that answer. Me too. They sat together watching the sun climb higher, the world waking up around them. Somewhere in the house the kids were stirring. Soon there would be breakfast chaos and morning arguments and the beautiful mess of family life. But for now, there was just this. Peace. Real peace. The kind that comes not from avoiding storms, but from learning to stand in them and survive. Caroline Hayes. Mercer had walked into an airport 3 years into her marriage and watched her life fall apart. She had walked out of it 15 years later, whole. Not the same woman. Not unscathed. Not without scars. But whole. And that she understood now was the only victory that mattered. Not revenge. Not vindication. Not making Marcus pay for what he'd done. Just this, a life rebuilt from rubble. A family forged in fire. A heart that had learned to trust again. She had survived. She had healed. She had become someone worth being. And nothing, not Marcus Wellington, not fear, not the memory of everything she'd lost could ever take that away from her. This was her life now. Hard won. Deeply loved. Entirely her own. And she would never let anyone make her feel small again.